Hey folks, just doing another little reading here. This will be at least two-parter, so sorry. A very different kind of killer. Say the term hitman, and images of cement shoes and ruthless goons come to mind. But even such a real-life contract killer may be a humanitarian compared to the economic hitman. The concept of someone rubbing out an economy is mind-boggling. It is really possible to financially bust the kneecaps of or utterly destroy a nation in a planned, cold-blooded fashion. Who would benefit from such a cynical and manipulative scheme? It is safe to say those who actually plot such conspiracies are the ultimate insiders with positions of great power and influence. Arranging economic hits is a much more complex and lucrative occupation than knocking off mob rivals or stuffing bodies in car trunks. Technically speaking, there is no blood on the hands of the perpetrators, although his action may result in much indirect suffering and chaos. As outrageous as it may sound, such agents exist and spread their poison as opportunities arise. Since their work is shadowy, unscrupulous, and pays extremely well, those in the field tend to keep a low public profile. A real life that reads like a novel. John Perkins was among the leading moles in the world of international finance. Although he was talented at setting up one-sided loans and other deals, Perkins eventually found that his conscience, a rarity in this line of work, led him to get out of the business. As a former member in good standing of the international economic mafia, Perkins knew that silence about his past dealings was the wise and safe course of action. After much internal struggle, his conscience, that pesky little word again, led to Perkins to reveal his past and how mostly third world nations as well as countries higher on the affluence scale can be ensnared in a web of debt. It's hard to sum up confusions of an economic hitman in a few words. Although it's non-fiction, the book has some of the elements of a tightly written suspense novel. Confessions also provides a thorough, well-documented script on international high finance and promoting debt to the obvious disadvantage of the borrower. Most importantly, Perkins provides plenty of proof to refute naysayers who label those who acknowledge that people work together secretly to perform evil as conspiracy nuts. His own introduction to this little-known field was cloaked in mystery. Flawed in all the right places. The son of New England prep school teachers, Perkins graduated from Boston University in 1968 with rather ordinary credentials. Thanks to the intervention and influence of a mysterious Uncle Frank, not a family member, he was also interviewed by the National Security Administration, NSA, an organization Perkins described as the country's least known and by most accounts largest spy organization. By his account, Perkins went through a grueling day-long series of polygraph tests. He spilled his guts and admitted to a strong desire for wealth and to jealousy towards the affluent preppies his parents taught, as well as an incident where he lied to the police. The author felt such negatives were a sure disqualification for the NSA and went on with his life. To the contrary, however, those exploitable weaknesses made a candidate more desirable in the eyes of the NSA, and Perkins was offered a job. He declined the offer and instead served 3 years as Peace Corps volunteer in rural Ecuador. But the NSA and/or those close to the agency hadn't forgotten about the young applicant. A man in a business suit landed on a remote airstrip near where Perkins and his wife were living. Einar Grieve was a vice president at Charles T. Maine, Inc., also referred to as Maine by Perkins. Maine was an international consulting firm that kept a very low profile and that was in charge of studies to determine whether the World Bank should lend Ecuador and its neighboring countries billions of dollars to build hydroelectric dams and other infrastructure projects. Grieve admitted to a connection with the NSA and spent several days with Perkins pitching the young Peace Corps volunteer on the benefits of working with the firm. He also asked Perkins to provide Maine with regular reports on Ecuador's economic prospects and other related information. Perkins honored Grieve's request, diligently writing 15 letters in a year. That led to an interview and a job offer. Even though he was a business administration major, Perkins was hired as an economist. During the interview and in his early months on the job, Perkins discovered that Maine, ostensibly an engineering firm, had close connections with the World Bank and other quasi-government organizations. The power of rose-tinted glasses. 3 staff economists were fired shortly after Perkins joined Maine. According to management, they were let go because of a lack of ability to adapt to and deal with working in situations with little or no reliable statistical data. Perhaps it was ethical concerns that caused the economists to balk at making the off-the-cuff predictions, as Perkins soon discovered. Perkins was trained by a mysterious and beautiful woman who worked under an assumed name. Even with the cloak and dagger secrecy, the trainer bluntly told Perkins that he was going to be an economic hitman. In something straight out of a mafia initiation, Perkins was told that he was in the organization for life. The newly minted hitman was assigned to Indonesia to assess the potential for building a nationwide electric system. Perkins met a crusty old American electrical engineer who was also on the main payroll. Under orders to deliberately inflate the potential of the project, Perkins found that his estimates for growth in electricity usage and demand were more than double what his co-worker predicted. The older man berated Perkins for giving in to the hype and the systemic lies. The experienced engineer was soon fired, and Perkins presented his glowing projections to the Indonesian government. Why would Perkins and Maine engage in such dishonesty? Maine and other firms, such as the politically connected and notorious Bechtel, engaged in the same game. They created cheery, unrealistic scenarios of how large-scale infrastructure and construction projects would turn impoverished nations into bastions of prosperity. Sounds sort of like the health care bill. See you in part 2.